Welcome everyone here tonight for our October board meeting. In accordance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act, Section 3480, South Carolina Code 1987 is amended. All the meeting areas will notify the date, time, location, and agenda of the meeting. This time we have our prayer by Mr. Govan.
Let's bow our heads. Father, it is again that we come to try to do your will. We ask God that you will allow us to make decisions that are in the best interest of our children, our employees, and Lord, that you will direct our path, that we can have meaningful discussion. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Now stand for pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll now ask for approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Citizens' comments. Do we have anyone signed up?
No.
No. We'll forego that part of the agenda. Adult education admissions. Motion for that.
Chairman, I move that we accept the recommendation.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of that motion? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Minutes, September 12, 2002 regular meeting, minutes, September 26, 2022 board work session. We can take those together or we can take them individually.
Move that we accept both sets of meetings.
Have a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion on that? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion passes. Next, Darlington County Board of Education meeting is scheduled for November 14th, 2022 at 6 p.m. at the board training room here in Darlington. Budget reports. Anything?
Nothing unusual.
Federal funds report. Nothing unusual there. Okay. Goals, updates.
Warren, before you go to that,
Yes.
you said the work, what'd you say about the work session?
Since the next regular meeting is November 14th.
Okay, you didn't say the work session. Are we gonna
Okay.
not have that work session because it's the same night as the?
We're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, goals update.
Chairman Joe Humans, members of the board, and those in our audience, online and in person. It's good to see folks here in person. It's been a little while. Again, wanting to do monthly updates on the goals that we had established at the beginning of the school year. Safety and security, the first goal. We actually had some training with our administrators this past Monday. It's what they call a roundtable situational incident training. And what that is that our consultants, our safety and security consultants that we've been working with, met with our administrators and did scenarios. And so they were able to sit down in small groups together and have a chance to work through different scenarios that come up that, you know, could be particular emergencies that they work through and how they would react, what they would do, who would they use, how would they implement. And again, this is all through the consistent, systematic way that we are training everybody to respond to emergencies. Obviously, last week, you know, that's at the top of everybody's thoughts after what happened in the state of South Carolina in many school districts last week. We were fortunate to be out of school last week based on some of those things that happened as far as the threats that were called into schools. But it was perfect timing for us as a district to actually continue to do training with our consultants so that we could be prepared. And then also, we had our weapons detectors set up at our home football games.
for the home football games that we had over the past week or so. We learned a lot. We learned that wind can impact those weapons detectors, and so we have to make sure that the platforms are in place. That they, they're a lot lighter than the old school metal detectors that used to be out there. So we are learning as we go. But again, for the home games that they've been utilized, we've been able to get good training on them, and people are continuing to learn how to utilize those. Again, schools are establishing how they're implementing on their campuses, and we're learning weekly, but also we're learning with our athletic events too.
Have we got any screenings on that?
Any hits on the weapons detectors themselves? Not that I am aware of, especially at our athletic events, Mr. Johnson. Yep.
Any feedback on how to feed our
So
through any delays with?
So Mr. Lewis was there for probably one of the bigger games. How did that go for y'all, Mr. Lewis? Do you mind me asking?
Nope, no problem at all. We did not have any issues at all. The first night we used them, the wind did cause issues, so we had a slight delay then, but Friday night, no issues whatsoever.
That's great. Same thing with Darlington High School when I was there. They had to adjust to the wind, but they didn't have any problems with the queues and getting through and everything. So seemed to go well.
What's your thoughts about additional security on the outside? Because even with the incidents that happened in South Carolina, most of them are occurring outside of the stadium and not inside the stadium. And of course, obviously, if you got the metal detectors, you're going to discourage people from coming inside with the metal, with weapons or whatever. I know it's a cost issue, but I would like for us to think about the cost issue versus the reality and the benefits from maybe doing it.
So, Mr. Govan, what I will tell you is that for each game that comes up, our law enforcement staff, that we have our SROs, but also our law enforcement agencies, as well as Captain Nelson, Mr. Johnson, they're always having conversations about what is the next piece that we want to make sure that we have taken care of. Money is not the factor. Otherwise, if we feel like there is a security issue for a home game, we're going to hire more security. And based off what we've experienced so far this year, again, we're adapting to what's going on for the home games. We're fortunate in Darlington County. We've not experienced what some of the other districts have. We feel good about the response that we have set for everybody. Again, but we're monitoring every home game. And so if there is the feeling that we don't have enough, whether it be inside or outside, absolutely, we will add those folks.
In most cases, I know at the Hartsfield side, also constantly riding around in the parking area just to make sure that nothing is going on. So, and I've seen that at Darlington and other Lamar as well.
I know the Lamar game this past Friday night, we seem to have more Darlington County Sheriff's presence than normal. I mean, they were all over, which was good.
Yeah. So there's an example of reacting to kind of what the circumstances are. But I do understand your comment is let's make sure that money does not dictate safety in these scenarios. Also, update. We have hired. We approved the campus supervisor for both Darlington Middle School and for Hartsfield Middle School. There's been a recommendation turned in for Hartsfield Middle School, and I know that Darlington Middle School is working on that as we speak. So those folks should be in place pretty soon. And then again, just a reminder, one of the things that came out of this week's events with the shots fired calls that went out to a lot of schools and school districts is when the superintendent's groups met this week, they just emphasized the need to make sure that you do reunification drills, because if you watched on the news, that's what was taking place. And so a lot of schools and districts were forced to do the reunification because they couldn't call off, the law enforcement response. And so what's great for us is we've already done 3 reunification drills in the past year in all 3 of our attendance areas. So 3 total for the district, but 1 in each attendance area. So we have a good handle on where do they go and how do they get picked up. But I think a lot of districts and schools found out that that maybe they hadn't had a chance to do that, and so it brought to the forefront to make sure that you have your drills and your responses down. So again, I'm glad that we're ahead of the game on that, and I'm glad that we did not have to utilize that this past week like a lot of schools did.
That incident occurred, how many of them have similar protocols that we have, or using software like the Raptor system?
Yep. So Raptor system, I'm not 100% sure every district that got hit if they were using that. What I do know is that what is it? I love
you guys.
I Love You Guys, which is the South Carolina protocol for emergency response. That is systematic for every district in the state of South Carolina. So the fortunate thing is that that's there in place. I happened to kind of see firsthand what happened to Beaufort High School during that event. They were very prepared, very streamlined, but I also heard of some other instances where it wasn't the case. And so, again, I think having systems like Raptor in place makes it a much smoother response in what we're doing. Yeah. And again, just for added information, I'm sure you all have seen some of the news about this, but those calls were all very similar that came into every one of those schools. There were a total, I understand, 17 now. It was 13 earlier when I had the information, but it was 17. They were almost identical calls. And SLED and the FBI is investigating those.
Is there concern that some of those were coming from overseas?
That is what's being said. In fact, I read another article earlier today from other states that it happened, very similar, and the same conclusions, like almost identical calls going out to the schools, and the appearance that it's coming from overseas. But that's the safety and security update for this month, and then our mental health update. There's a couple items we were able to add an additional mental health counselor to our pool that we have. Again, we're up to 6 now. We normally would be at 9, and I would like to see us have 12, but we are slowly adding counselors in, and of course they are dividing up the schools that they're responsible for seeing. I know our principals are in the room are excited to see any additional help with these mental health counselors that we have coming in. So we're trying to add them as soon as possible. And then also USC has sent out an initiative that they're implementing with internships for folks that are doing mental health as well, and where districts can reach out. So we hope to learn more about that in the next few weeks too. And we are the position closed for the mental health coordinator position, and we should be interviewing for that sometime in the next week or so here. Get that position in place to help us get some leadership in that particular area. Also, the parental and guardian involvement. All of our schools have fully implemented their plans that they're working on to again interact with parents and guardians more. Of course, this is the time where we do parent-teacher conferences, and so a lot of our schools have been working on their schedules for that. I think flexibility has worked well for the district this year. We learned the past couple years that we don't necessarily have to have a set time for every single school, because parents need the flexibility to go to, if they have children at the middle school and an elementary school and a high school, to be able to go to all 3 of those. So when you pin that down to just one day and one time, it's difficult for families to do that. Our schools have done a really good job of reaching out to their parents and guardians for the dates that they set up so they can meet with their teachers, and also customize more one-on-one chances with them as well. So Again, just trying to strengthen the ties that we have and get more involvement with our parents and our guardians for our students that we have in the district. As far as the academics, we are currently trying to finalize our academic enhancement programs that we start for after school. If you remember, we were doing these programs last year as well, second semester. We're trying to initiate them for first semester. We're lining up the teacher help and teaching assistant help that we need. I could say that we're struggling to line up bus drivers right now, so we're trying to get the bus drivers lined up to be able to help us with this. And then, you know, of course, getting the students and parents to have their students participate. These students are identified based on their progress off of the first round of MAP, but also the formative assessments that our teachers and our PLC groups of teachers are looking at the students with. And so all that is coming together. Again, it's taken a little bit of time, and we're hoping to get the transportation piece worked out. You know, it's over the past couple of years, it's been tough getting people to work over and above the normal work day, because there's no such thing as a normal work day anymore, I don't think. So, but I am encouraged that the amount of teachers that have been signed up for this that are willing to help us. And again, we hope to get all those students identified and get the program up and running as soon as possible. And so that is the goals update for.
Okay, any questions, anyone?
In part of this goal, the achievements assessment, have we set, or have you set, like percentage goals that we're shooting to reach for this school year?
So similar to last year, we waited till the data was available to us, and then we went ahead and set those. And so yes, we will be doing that. So I will set that with the board as part of my evaluation process as well. So if you remember last year, that's when we initiated the percentages, the goals, the academic achievement percentages last year. And so that all happens over the next couple weeks.
Is that going to line up with the new growth model?
It can. Now, remember, the new growth model does not start, it's reporting only next year, and it doesn't come into effect until the following year. So it's 2 years out. But yes, we're actually, as a district, already doing a lot of what's already in the growth program. So it's by student. And so, for example, all of our administrators were presented with the growth model at our last principals meeting. Mr. Ferguson from the Oversight Committee came and presented.
The School Board Association had a lunch and learn with that.
Mm-hmm.
And he and Matt, was it Lau?
The other Matt, yeah, Matt and Matt.
Yeah, they made the presentation.
Yep.
And talked with Warren. Jamie, you were in attendance there. We'd like to get them to come to the board.
Sure.
And make because they presented it from a board perspective.
Yep.
And a funding,
Yep.
like priority funding aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's something that the entire board could benefit from, definitely. I mean, it was sponsored by the School Board Association, but I think it's certainly something that, as a board, we would benefit from, I think, if we could get them to come in and.
So we tapped in the fact that Mr. Ferguson used to work in the district, and he lives close by. So that's why we brought him to our administrators meeting last month, because it's best to hear. He had actually presented to the superintendent's roundtable at the last superintendent's meeting as well, the same information. So different audience. I think to your point,
right. I mean,
the board audience is a little different than the administrators and the superintendents, but absolutely. I don't think he would have any problems coming in to talk with y'all about that. But I think
we'd like to get that lined up. I just think that's.
And what's key to understand about the growth model? Well, a couple things. It is what we have been doing in the school district. Thankfully, that's why some of our schools have been successful at the beta version of it. But also, they're still finalizing some pieces to it too, as far as the points that they're trying to allocate to it. That's the one thing when Mr. Ferguson was with us, is that it was still in question how many points they would allocate. That still has to go through.
And that wasn't the
Oversight
focus of his, kind of the portion that he covered with us. I mean, I think it's more, it gave a realistic assessment of how you would march out progress.
Sure.
Over a 5-year period.
Sure.
And so if you have a child who is at
Does not meet.
does not
one.
meet
Yeah.
level 2.
Yeah.
I mean, where over how you would see growth
Yep.
over a 5-year period
Yep.
to where you would get them where they are.
Absolutely.
So, and
so,
I think,
so that whole staggered display that they have, I think it's great information.
right,
Yep. And it's what all of our schools are focused on now, individually with students. To your point, we're focused on that whole model, but it's an individual. It goes down to the individual student. So you see that one student that
Correct.
does not meet one, and what is it going to take to get them here
Correct.
over time, and what does that look like? So yeah, absolutely. Be glad. I
Dr.
think.
Newman and I talked about that today, and we're gonna try to set up a time to do it. We're gonna try to the next meeting in October, but we have the city, county, council meeting
Legislative delegation.
together in that,
Yep,
so that's
dinner.
kind of knock
So we
that
won't
out.
have a work session this month?
No, because of that meeting. Remember, Tina's actually sent all that information out previously over the past few weeks.
We
That is going to be
we
our
can
work
have
session.
Have another work session, another night if we want to.
I caught the tail end, I had on my calendar to get catch it, I caught the last 40 minutes of it, 30 minutes of it, and
Yeah.
but wanted more, and he was walking out of the coffee shop one day last week, and I was walking in, and he said, I saw you watched our thing, so I said, did you get my job? I said, yeah, you saw me catch the last 30 minutes, I said, I'd like to get more. He said that he's been about 20 school boards in
Yep.
the state now.
Yep.
He said, come anytime. I
Yeah,
can
that's right.
Pay him a consultant. He said, no, that's what we do, that's what I do. I said, well, I'd love to have you, that's when I mentioned Warren.
Yeah.
Maybe the work session might be something, if we don't
Yeah.
have it, then.
Well, even if we don't do it this work, I mean, we can bring them in any work session to do that, because again, it's just now getting rolled out, so there's time. Even if we did it in December or January or February, there's plenty of time because it's not even getting implemented until next year. But they've got a beta version where they're showing the what ifs right
I
now.
feel like we just keep changing our methods of testing and analyzing these students, and we keep going through it, and then your staff's got to relearn. Why do we, I'm sorry, I look back 40 years ago.
I was about to say, you sound like somebody's been doing this a little while, Jane.
What's different now than then, and is it so much more difficult? And why are we using different parameters, and why are we keep changing the test? Once we learn how to start monitoring, then we change it to something else, and we're starting over again. It's like, it takes time. Well, every time we get a hold of what it and analyzing and understanding what it means, so we can direct our people what to do, we change and got a new learning program. It just doesn't make sense, which I spoke to several state school board members over the past week, and we kind of had a little agenda here, because I've always said, let's get in our bus, go to Columbia. Well, we need to skip Columbia. After conversations with them, sorry, we're really kind of a policy. We really can't change any of that stuff either. It's really your legislators and your national legislators and your local legislators. Well, then that's who we need to be meeting with. And we used to do it once or twice a year. And at our advocacy meeting the other night, it was okay. But what I was wanting was a roundtable for us to get together, talk about areas that we all have a general consensus of what we see as our problem, and then we send that collectively to our legislators, or they come here, not a gripe session, but truly, what do we see? We're down here. We can't do anything. It's got to happen from here, but we see the problems. We understand what we're going through, like this, changing the programs, like funding, on and on. And you always hear me complain about if you measure what we did 15 years ago in the classroom from a budget standpoint relative to today, you probably won't see a big change because they're putting more and more on the districts. We say that obviously gets in the classroom as far as more they've got to do. Then we got to hire more support staff to do this and to follow this. Y'all, I mean, enough is enough. So with that, that's what I want to see out of these advocacy meetings. And I'd like for us to get together so we can really get together with our legislators, make sure they understand we do this, we live this. They don't. So listen to us, listen to our administrators and staff to have real change. But we are not, I just feel like we are not educating like we used to because they can't, they're not allowed to. Till they understand that, I have a problem with that, I guess, but that's kind of what I'd like to see. So that's where all that came, the advocacy meeting, and then when I saw him, listen to that, I'd love to hear that face to face.
So a good starting point for what you're talking about is this countywide and legislative delegation supper. That's the start. 24th.
I thought that was,
Well,
I thought that was a multi-county,
It is.
It is, but
well, that's a joke.
well, but
Sorry.
legislative delegation's supposed to be there though.
Okay.
They're
but
invited to.
If we don't have an agenda with select items, and you're focused on that, and it's just everybody go around cheerleading saying this, it's a great time to get together and socialize, but let's don't call it a meeting. And I hate to say it, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna try it out one more time, but there's no agenda. Remember we talked several years ago, we started putting together an agenda when we go to these things, let's see something happen when we come back together again, let's see where would we progress from there.
Yep.
Otherwise,
So let's pull one or two things out to talk with them.
flexibility,
Yeah.
spending flexibility from the school perspective.
Let's make sure that that's the message we carry at that dinner, is we can pull one or two things out. And then at that dinner, we can also say, what's the opportunity of having our legislative delegation come meet with us before this advocacy conference that's in December, right? Because that's where a lot of, they're getting ready for the budget season coming up in January. So I think it's good timing that
So
we can do
regardless
that.
of what the other municipalities and boards have to say, when it comes to our time, why don't we have 2 or 3
Yep.
strong bullet points
Yep.
that we have a general consensus here
Yep.
that we could drive home?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
No, all right.
Good.
It's good.
Sorry.
Really,
Carl?
that is a part of, if you look at the agenda that's already printed for that meeting, October 26th.
Oh, it's 26, I'm sorry. Did I say?
This is
24, whatever it
24.
is.
I thought it said 24.
24.
It's 24th.
Yeah, I think the last item on there, after the comments from, I believe it's the city manager, it was open for discussion. And I think that's where we as agencies, if you will, would have the opportunity to be able to have that input. The real question is, we just hope that we will have enough members of the delegation present. I mean, that's
Who's
the real
responsible
issue.
for that invitation? The host? Well,
Yeah.
good luck with that.
I mean, that's the real issue, because even the meeting we went to the other day, I'm like you, Jamie, I was really kind of disappointed. And of course, I am on the state board, but I'm still disappointed. And I expressed that in my comments for that feedback. Because I do think that those type meetings need to do some other things to get input from your board members across the state. If you're going to talk about dealing with the General Assembly. But you're right, it goes past the General Assembly. I mean, it's a layer effect, and teachers, administrators, superintendents are being told from the top what to do. So to some degree, they don't have a choice. And so I think sometimes we are talking to the wrong persons. I think the real people we need to be talking to is your congressman, your delegation, your legislative delegation, and even some of your legislators who aren't even this delegation.
Again, I think we should change our focus for this board. If we're not doing anything but spinning our wheels here, guys, why don't we go ahead and set these up 2 to 3 meetings a year, or how many we need to have, where we invite our statewide as well as our national, let's come down, have them both together. I mean, I don't, what's the problem? Have them both together, let's hear it. But again, be concise. See what our general issues are, our major issues, and let's have them at it. I mean, I hate to say it, there's no other way to do it, because state, 3 board members I spoke to, all of them, no, I'm sorry, I'm with you, I'm in the same boat as you are, frustrated. But they can't do anything. So again, that's what we need to do, and I think where this board should focus.
And I think it will be helpful for our board members to express that to our legislators too.
Correct.
Because we've tried over the past few years to put some things together, and it's not really come together. So
if you would like for some of us to try to reach out, more than happy to, but again, we're nothing but advocates. We don't run the district.
Yep.
Y'all run it, you're the professionals, that's what you're trained to do. But very often, you're not allowed to do that. Those are the things that need to be conveyed. We as advocates need to go to these legislators, and we need to convey that to them, one-on-one and as a group.
Yep.
So I think that's what we should focus on.
Yep.
We can go over all this stuff all we want, a lot of this stuff is a formality, to be honest with you. That's where our time, I think our time is better spent. If we really want to have change and impact, that's what we need to do.
And like I said, I think we can all make that push at this dinner, where we can say we need some time to be able to sit down, and not just with 1 or 2, but really all of
I
it.
didn't know there was an agenda already out, so I'll look at the agenda, but then I'll make some calls to people, and I'll try to do what I can do to try to, if it's,
Yeah.
make it worthwhile.
Yeah, I think Tina just put out the agenda to the board today, if I'm not mistaken. She just sent it, so. And it may have been to the folks that had signed up originally, but I don't think y'all may have understood that that's a work session and that's what we're using for our work
Okay.
session. And that's, so the date is open for everybody based on the work session. I want to make sure that everybody.
Glad you
knew
said that, because I
was-
probably wouldn't have gone, 'cause for people, what it was gonna be, the same thing.
So just replace being here with being in Hartsville for that particular meeting. All right?
Okay. All right, we'll move on. Darlington County School District, state of the district, not state of the state, state of the district.
Right, state of the state, state of the
State
district.
of the district.
And again, it's, try to do this annually. It's been difficult to do it the 2 prior years, or at least last year it was difficult based on what we were dealing with. But just an opportunity to highlight the past year's accomplishments and highlight some of the things that have happened in the school district for our employees, for our students, for our families and communities. And again, just an opportunity to look at some of the different things. Also talk about the goals that we had set last year. And, you know, what were some of the, you know, what was the progress that we made on the goals that we made last year? Again, at Convocation last year, we had 3 separate goals that were out there. So it's just a chance to really kind of dig into, you know, we're in that season where obviously the test scores have come out, and we've talked about the test scores. And we'll continue to talk about the test scores, but we also need to be talking about the other things that are taking place in the school district that I think that are important to all of us. So with that said, I'm trying to figure out the best place to do this, but the board, you can see that screen there if you want, or you can see up here. We've tried to set up a couple different boards so everybody can kind of take a look at what's going on. And I will just start. So it's based on the 4 pillars. I try to, you know, package everything within the pillars, and the first pillar that we have is community. And so again, talking about some of those things we were just talking about earlier. The I Love You Guys emergency management protocols. And so, again, Captain Nelson is the point person for the school district and how we handle all of the responses that we have. I know a couple board members have asked, you know, is there a consistent way that this is being done? Yes, there is. The I Love You Guys protocols that we have, and everybody trained on that. Standard response protocol also for all of our emergencies that all the administrators are being trained on. We've added we're adding SROs at Hartsville High School and Darlington High School. We received the grant money this past year to put the SRO at DCIT. So again, and y'all have handouts as well if you wanted to make any kind of notes for this as well. And then of course the reunification drills in Hartsville, Lamar, and Darlington that we conducted. Again, these impact our school community within our school, but also they impact outside and our parents to make sure that we're doing things to protect our students. We initiated the weapons detectors implementation. Y'all remember at the retreat that we had the actual introduction and demonstration of those, but we have been talking about those. Conducted emergency response training with our administrators, initiated district-wide safety and security evaluation with our national consultants. You remember they've been a big part of this with us. And not only were they there at our retreat that we had, they've been involved in trainings with us frequently. And then a couple of perks that we've had. District employee technology purchases that all of our employees had a chance to buy a used MacBook or a used iPad last spring. That's the first time we've done that in the district. And then of course the board voted to continue to give seniors their MacBooks at graduation as long as they satisfied all of their requirements and paid their technology fees. And so again, I applaud the board for just saying, you know what, why don't we just do this every year for seniors instead of, you know, we started off doing it because of COVID, and then the board made the decision to move forward with that. So transition student services and operations forms to online. So again, we're trying to, efficiency wise, everything was hard copies that got sent via courier with card
trying to get as much of this online to help our schools, again, get information they need. We have initiated GPS tracking devices for all of our equipment and vehicles. Y'all remember we had some break-ins to some of our sheds and some of our mowers, and so we are in the process, we started this at the end of last year, implementing, making sure there's GPS trackers on our equipment and all of our vehicles that we have as well. We have, sorry, let me get back one more. There we go. Was that it? Thank you. All right, we hired the architects. As you all know, we have 2 architectural firms that are under contract now to help us out with any of the capital projects that we have as far as the smaller ones. For example, the district office across the breezeway, we're looking at using that space for office space to help us, because we've got some of our areas like special needs has been growing over the past few years. And so we're trying to utilize the space that we have here. The building 400, if you remember the esports we've talked about, that program's almost set up. The equipment, the room, everything. In fact, that'll probably be a good place to try to have a board meeting sometime, is over at that space, so everybody can see that. That also has some office space that's associated with it. Again, before we were having to put out architect bids. Now we have those folks that are under contract with us. We initiated the Highway 52 Maintenance Department move. That's fully in process now and should be complete sometime in the next month here for the most part, with staff that we have down here at the main facility. We held open house events for our 3 newest schools. Remember, we opened them in 2020, but we couldn't do an open house until last year. So if y'all remember, we finally had a chance to invite our public in for that. We held our first Orange Frog Community Random Act of Kindness Day last April, where we had all of our schools participate in our communities in giving back. Very important. And also our students a lot of our students participated with us as well. We have another one that will be set up for November this year, as well as another one in April next year. We introduced new onboarding processes with Payroll and HR. Again, we're trying to refine what happens when people walk in the door from the time they apply online for a position with us to the time that they're actually offered a position with us and accepted, to be able to get put in the payroll system, to be able to be set up for their ID badge, for their technology equipment. We are continually trying to get this process refined and online instead of with paper forms that we've been doing. The new Cronus system, we've had Cronus in the past, but if you all remember, it's very expensive and you have to buy licenses for every employee that was on it. That's the reason why all of our classified staff have not been on Cronus, because it was so expensive as far as the charge for the fees that we were paying. They came out with a school district version. We're one of the first districts to actually do this, and so we're really close to being able to throw this out and have all of our classified staff. So this is, basically all of our TAs in the schools. This is Fair Labor Standards Act that we're having to respond to this because, right? So
is this what we discussed back when Diane was here some years ago? That we had this equipment and this technology software, but we weren't using it, and then we were starting to use it?
We've always had Cronus.
Right.
So Cronus is something that has always been for bus drivers and custodians. But now we're upgrading it to include all hourly employees.
Okay, we discussed this at several meetings, some equipment, some software, something we had with clock systems and so forth, and
Yep.
we weren't utilizing it. We had it, but no one did it because we didn't take the time or it wasn't explained. Is
Yeah.
that not what this?
That might, I think that you're referring to,
TMA.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, was I? Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't
Thank
even see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been good,
No, it wouldn't have been.
especially online. I think what you're referring to is the actual work order system that had certain things
You're right.
associated with it.
Yeah.
This is different. This actually is, employees will use their badges. Like right now, they have to type in to a computer system. With the new Cronus, it's badge in, and it's all hourly employees will badge in and badge out. Again, that's just keeping up with Fair Labor Standards Act that we have to do, so I'm looking over your
So
shoulder.
don't back into it, you back into
Don't
it.
back
I got it.
He moved it, I'll move, I got it.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. I'm like, okay, I can try to ad-lib this, but it may not go well. Of course, updated.
One of what he's trying to do, get further away.
Updated job descriptions and salary study recommendations. Again, the board's fully aware of what we've been going through over the past couple of years with this. Again, this past year, we were able to match up what are people actually doing versus what did we say they were doing, modify some of the job descriptions that we have, and of course, update a lot of the job descriptions and titles that we've been going through. We approved raises for employees, so our teacher salary scale increased by $3,000 per cell. Again, thank you, board, for approving that raise for teachers to start this school year. And then, so our starting teacher salary is $43,000 plus the $1,000 induction bonus. So we're at $44,000 for brand new teachers, which is significantly higher than most people in the PD. I think Ori is we're close to Ori at this point, but everybody else we're a good bit ahead of.
Where's Florence?
Florence is at least $2,000 behind us. So
That was this year's salary.
yeah, where we are right now. So this was
Does that
approved in the budget.
include the $1,000 induction
Nope. So then the board
or exclusive of?
exclusive.
Okay.
So the board provided a retention bonus for all eligible employees in addition to that salary. So we have the 43 plus the 1 plus the retention bonus for our existing teachers that we have.
But that may not be recurring, so.
Right.
So where are we without a recurring?
At the 43 plus.
Well,
the
yeah, we're at the
1,000.
43, but where is that compared to Florence one?
Again, we're $2,000
So
over.
they're at 40, they're starting at 41.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's correct. And then, again, the retention bonus that the board graciously approved for teachers and other employees as well in the district. All right, understanding our students, the next pillar. We've had district level learning rounds. What that is groups of not just district office personnel, but school personnel, administrators, literacy coaches, CTs, going through schools. Middle level math and the intervention school is where this was implemented last year. We're expanding that this year for schools, for ELA, in all of our elementary schools we're looking at. But again, I think if you look at the middle level math scores overall from last year, I think it was helpful to have the rounds in the buildings and interacting with the teachers. Again, giving feedback, but also just sharing and collaborating what we're doing with curriculum in the school. Development of our district community committees. We had one strategic planning meeting last year in the spring. We are trying to set up the second one. I know we had proposed a date that didn't work out, but we've got 3 more dates we're going to give out to the board to see when we can have our next strategic planning with our district community. That's our parents, again, community members, businesses that we've got. Addition of instructional technology coaches. Again, we have 3 grade band. That means primary grades, elementary grades, middle and high grades, where these coaches are in the schools on a rotating basis, helping teachers how to integrate technology and use some of the different software systems and technology pieces that we have in place. And then we also have our multi-tiered support systems, MTSS. You're going to hear that acronym a lot. Response to intervention, RTI, you hear that a lot. These are all very similar, but it's how are we addressing the needs of the kids, especially those that are behind. How are we working with those students? MTSS was originally put in place to help address how many students were being identified for special education with learning disabilities. That seemed to be a catch-all, so we're trying to give these students supports to where hopefully they won't be identified for special education services. District level and school level social and emotional learning committees. Again, this was implemented last year as one of the goals, and so there was a district level, but the schools each have somebody at the school. It's an administrator, it's a school counselor, it's a teacher, and they're all identifying students in the building that they see as having needs. Again, having a team of folks in the building to say,
that student's struggling, we need to identify it, we need to see if we can help get them some supports, but also just to monitor those students, and that's existing at all of the schools that we have in the district. Our digital academic assistant plans, again, are school-based and they're electronically warehoused. That everybody's got access to. And then, of course, our academic enrichment programs after school and summer school. Remember, we offered that to any student that wanted to participate this past year. So we're able to fund that with ESSER monies. In the past, it's just been the students that were failing. Now we're able to offer that to any student. You know, obviously, we need to address the ones that are failing first, but we've been able to, with the personnel available, do as many as we can.
What was the participation rate, and how difficult and what did you have as far as being able to find people to actually conduct classes?
So yes and yes. I think there was fatigue for summer school. Let me address summer school. I think there was fatigue for parents and students. We offered it to everybody. We didn't have as many people, decide to take advantage of it. And when we talked to parents and asked them why, they just said that they were tired. Their kids were tired and they were tired from the previous year and what they had been dealing with. If you remember, we were dealing with significant COVID numbers in January and February, and so, but the ones that we identified that were failing, we definitely did the hard sell push on those kids that we needed them in with us to be able to do. And then again, we were able to piece together enough employees. We increased the amount that we were paying for summer, and so that helped. Bus drivers, the same thing. We had to get bus drivers.
So the impact was very little.
I wouldn't say that.
I'm just saying, this is again, in fact, where we're forced to spend the money in a certain time frame, and knowing good and well it's hard enough to get employees during the regular workday, much less after school and in the summer. Now the kids, I hate to say it, now this is a parent thing, guys, you either want it or you don't.
Yeah.
We're putting it out there for you, we're offering it for you, but again, this is back where I wish that there wasn't a time constraint on the funds that are being provided so that we can put together these programs properly staffed and able to get the kids. I don't know, it's just.
I agree.
Just throwing money away, in my opinion. I'm sorry, that's your federal government forcing
I
that.
agree. Now, we didn't throw money away because we only spent it on people who were there. So
And I'm not saying us, I'm saying being forced to do it. This is back another
But the money
legislative point.
was
that
not all
needs to be discussed.
spent. Yes.
They should never put those kind of time frames,
Yeah.
knowing that you just can't put that together like that.
That's right.
Tim, we've got a lot of programs. I mean, you're strong here at a lot of programs. Is there any way to tease out? Because obviously we're not going to have ESSER monies forever.
Yeah.
So are there ways to tease out which of these programs, what we're actually seeing so that we can budget in the future to be, for our own selves, to be able to continue this? Because,
You can't do it all, right?
we can't do it all,
Yeah.
but also, do we need to repeat everything unless we can absolutely show a direct line to achievement?
See, Wanda, that's what Dr. McCutcheon, I don't know if you were on the board when he was here, he complained about the same thing.
Yeah.
You can't even put anything in play before you're starting something new. How do we know if something's successful or not? Do we get feedback from our staff, or just force what everybody's telling us to do from top down?
Yep.
So,
So, for example, on interventionists and reading recovery, I'm going to show you some numbers where that's tied. We are tracking every single student. We have to because of the ESSER requirements. So all these programs that are paid with ESSER, after school, summer school, they're all tracked in the system. They're flagged to see how they are performing in comparison to their peers. The students that had reading interventions, the students that had reading recovery services, all those students have been tracked, and we are comparing them to how they perform to their peers that did not have interventions, for example.
And when will we get that data?
I'm going to show you in a slide here in just a second. But to your point, we do need to be thinking about there's no way we can continue with all this when this money goes away. But are there things that we know are working, and if they are, we got to prepare in advance for how we're going to budget, if we can budget.
and I hate to prolong it, but I have to ask this question. Do we ever go to our teachers in the classroom and find out what really works? And instead of, I don't know where all these programs come from, all these acronyms and all these different things, but it seems like, again, someone else is here, this is what we're going to do from the state level, federal level, but do we ever ask our own people, what is working? That's where I want to put my money. If you send me ESSER money, whatever that's for, to rebuild, teacher, what, you see these kids, you deal with them every day. What do you run into? What are the deficiencies? Where do we need to do it? I feel certain they come up with a better program than what we're getting. Does that make sense?
It does, but I depend, and I think the folks that are sitting in those chairs back in this room, they're constantly talking with their teachers about what's working, what's
Right.
not working.
What's working from what's being
Right.
sent.
That's right. That's right. And so from a funding standpoint, right? I don't think any of us have had an issue with getting something funded as much as getting people to participate, to your point, like for summer school. But yes, you know, the ears on the ground are the teachers that are interacting with the students. And so do they feel interventionists are helping them, right? So that's a question. Does a classroom teacher think a student going out for reading interventions is helping them in their teaching, right? Those are the questions that absolutely are being asked. And if it's not working, then it swells up. So it swells up from the teacher to the principal to us.
And I just often think of that money that we discussed, what are we going to do with it, and y'all fault, where can we put it, how do we put it to use? I mean, it's back to throw it to the classroom. What do y'all think? Instead of us telling you, not you, but I mean saying they've got this new program that works for this, and we've had to follow it for 5 years or whatever. I don't know, I just feel like if the money went down there in the classroom.
And just remember, we're only allowed to spend it a certain way. There's only certain buckets that we're allowed to put the money in. So, you know, if you and I've had this conversation a lot, give me 10 years with the same amount of money, and I can fund positions and spend that money in programs in the right way. That's what we need.
Back to flexibility.
The flexibility.
All right.
Because right now, you know, what really helps the schools is those targeted people doing targeted things, but we can't do that because the money bucket won't allow us to do that. So we have to do it in other ways that fit in the bucket, so to speak. Again, the academic enrichment programs, we just touched on that briefly. District level curriculum team, again, this goes back to the ELA standards and the math units that are out there at the beginning. Last year, we brought folks in at the end of the school year to again talk about what is the curriculum, what is the pacing, what are the units, what are the assessments, give us feedback. There's actually online forms that teachers can interact with any unit that they're teaching if they have suggestions for how to improve it. If there's assessments and questions that they don't think fit what they're teaching, they can actually put that in on an online document. All that is synthesized. And again, groups of teachers across the district are having conversations about, all right, how do we make this better? You know, great, we got this, but actually that question and this assessment didn't make sense based on what we taught. So how can we replace that with another one? So we're consistently trying to refine this. We're also initiating this process now with social studies and science, okay? We had to get started with ELA and math first. The next steps are to roll out to other content areas. Again, it means grabbing teachers, pulling them together, take a look at this. Does this make sense? Across the district, can we get collaboration and consensus? Again, all the teachers were trained at the beginning of the year last year to access the ELA and math curriculum. And what do they do in their individual schools with PLCs, with their principals, with their literacy coaches, with their CTs that have all this? And then, of course, introducing Performance Matters to replace Mastery Connect. Again, I was a huge Mastery Connect fan when I got here, and I kept hearing teachers tell me over and over, it doesn't mesh with Schoology. It does not connect correct with Schoology. And so finally, we did a test pilot with some teachers in the district last year, and they said, yes, Performance Matters makes more sense for us. It's easier once we learn how to initiate new assessments to do that. So we piloted it last year, and then we're fully implementing with ELA, and then math will start in January with Performance Matters for assessments as well. Also, what this will give us in the future is a dashboard. Going back to your point, Wanda, about the growth piece. I have been pursuing a dashboard for our teachers and our principals to have that will show them all of their students with all of the different assessments,
with all of the different interventions in one space to be able to say, I can click on this student, and here's exactly what their MAP scores were for this year so far. Here's how they performed on this unit that we are teaching currently. Here's the formative assessments. Here's how all of their SC Ready history scores. So all of that will be in one place in Performance Matters for teachers, administrators, and district staff to have information at our fingertips. Again, it's going to be powerful. It is in depth, and so it's going to take some training to get there. But there is power in data that's available, and again, for teachers to really dig into that growth piece, they got to see the data from the students on a regular basis in front of them.
So we have eliminated Mastery Connect now.
It's not gone yet, so we're transitioning. So we're transitioning out of Mastery Connect to Performance Matters, and there's this kind of, in between time. For example, all of our math assessments are being done in Mastery Connect still, because we've not transitioned to Performance Matters for that.
And how long do you anticipate this transition to occur?
I hope by the end of this school year. That's our hope, is by the end of this school year, we will be transitioned away from Mastery Connect into Performance Matters. District-wide,
How long did we give Mastery Connect, just out of curiosity?
it was here for, Ms. King, how many years
2013.
before I got here?
2013.
2013, and it's 9 years. And one of the hiccups with it, Wanda, was that the parent company of Mastery Connect is Canvas, which is an online learning management system like Schoology, right? And so it works really well with Canvas, but it doesn't work as well with Schoology. It doesn't give you the ability to manipulate it like you can with another LMS.
So did we have a contract with Mastery Connect?
Yes. And it will come to an end at the end of this year. But we can renew it if our transition is delayed, that's what we've been doing.
And cost-wise, what's between the two?
I can get that for you.
I mean, I'm just curious if we're
Similar.
we're holding
Yeah,
contracts
similar.
with that.
Yeah. Similar, or it would be difficult to justify. So you write that down.
And was Performance Matters a collective agreement to move that, or was this an administrative decision and then pushed down, just out of curiosity?
Nope, we brought teachers in, we brought a whole group of people in,
Because
teachers,
that was the biggest
administrators.
problem with Mastery Connect. We did not have buy-in on Mastery Connect.
Yep. We actually brought a group of teachers and school-based folks from across the district and said, look at this, do you think this will be better than what we are currently utilizing? Do you think this will help you? And so it was definitely collaboration and buy-in on, yes, this will work. The biggest piece now is to get the training in place, right? So it takes time. You don't have to have much training to just do the assessments that are in there, but the training comes from how do I analyze the data on the dashboard? How do I get the pieces of data in there? And then also, if I want to design my own assessments, that's the next step of the training that we're going to be doing between now and Christmas break. So we actually have a lot of training that's going to be going on across the district with administrators, with literacy coaches, and then down to teachers as well.
I mean, because I don't want to fall, we've switched we've switched from this to that, and we never had, I mean, unless we're going to get buy-in on the Performance Matters, it's not going to make any more difference than the Mastery Connect, and
Yep.
we've never got buy-in on Mastery Connect.
And it's imperative that we get buy-in on something, because that is the lifeline of data that we're analyzing. And again, if we're going to analyze our students and that growth piece,
And is that tied to the standards? Is the Performance Matters
It is.
questions, they're tied to standards?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So the reading recovery and reading interventionists, again, implemented in all. So the reading recovery is your K through 2 group, okay? Reading recovery is specifically primary grades. And then your interventionists
are your 3 through 8, and we also put interventionists at our high school too, 9 through 12. We added those, they have not been added on as quickly as we were able to get the folks in place at the elementary level. But just to give you an idea on the impact that they're having, okay? So out of all the students, and again, we've got every student flagged with this. So for reading interventionists, okay, we took all the students that were in the does not meet category and we compared them to the students that did not get interventions in the does not meet category, right? So you're basically talking the lowest of the low. So the students that got interventions versus the students that didn't get interventions, it was 60% versus 7%. So those students, 80+% or does not meet, it dropped to 20%. So there was a 60% drop in the students that received interventions versus just a 7% drop for the students that did not receive the interventions.
How many actual students did we?
In the interventions, it was a total of 1,219 students that were in that data point.
Right at just under 10%.
Well, no, remember, it's just the grades that you test. This is just, interventionists are the elementary students that we're talking about.
3-8.
Yep. Now, your reading recovery, right, that's your K through 2 students. Approximately, let me make sure I got the total for you right here. Yeah, it does not meet category, is about 500 and, I'm sorry, about 1,000 students. I'm sorry, about 1,000 students in the does not meet category. So the difference there, again, the ones that got the reading recovery teachers working with them.
How are we grading those when they're not doing the state assessment at K2?
So they do MAP, and MAP is being recognized by the state. They're actually collecting all that data. It's not out in a report yet, but it's about to start getting reported like SC rating is.
So I'll make sure I just understood what you said. So there were 1,219 students that had interventionists for math?
So
For reading?
So there were approximately 1,200 students total. 368 students went to reading recovery teachers or Read 180 interventionists. And of those, so 368 kids actually were pulled out of their classes and received tier 2 instruction.
So that's not the 1,200.
1,200 was the total number.
Of students
So
that
you're
did
looking
not
at- you're looking
meet
at the lower
for
grades.
math in
Yep.
those grades.
So we have 1,200 students who did not meet. Is that what we're saying?
Right.
yeah,
And 300 of them.
So we had initially,
I'm not following the numbers.
let me total for you, how many kids total did not, initially,
I had numbers and I chose percents, but I can come back to the numbers. We can.
I'm just trying to understand the,
Absolutely.
there
What does it
were
look
19
like?
people that were in that
Yes.
were do not meet in
Yes.
kindergarten, in
Right.
elementary for reading, and 300 and some of those
Yep.
actually got interventionists. Is that right? So a quarter of them.
Yeah, and see, the reason why we're stumbling a little bit, there's 4 different categories, right? We're looking at the does not meet category because that's the ones that you focus on for
Okay, well,
interventions.
here's what I'm asking, how many students, period, were we able to serve?
And I have that number at about 1,700 students between reading interventions and reading recovery. So about 1,700 total students
Okay.
that receive those services.
and so let me also say that we had a number of different services. One, reading recovery. We had Read 180 interventionists. We also had our teachers that went through LLI training. And so when we
What's
look
LLI stand for?
literacy learn, literacy lead. LLI what is it, y'all?
Acronym time.
Yes. L, is it? Huh?
Level literacy.
Thank you.
Level literacy.
Level literacy. So what happens is they go through the training so that they're able to actually do observations with with our children to figure out what level they're on in reading. And as they move up and progress, that's how they progress monitor the children. Ms. Keels and Ms. Floyd work closely with teachers so they understand, basically like a doctor, how to diagnose where a child is deficient and then provide the prescribed intervention that needs to take place, and then how to progress monitor that. So they're going in and training teachers so that they're also doing some of those same strategies in the regular classroom. So that's why he's saying those kids are also being seen too. There were 401 children who actually were served by teachers who went through those trainings.
Right, so let me go back to the numbers. Reading recovery, all right? You had approximately 1,000 students served, that total, that were the group that were analyzed, okay? So, and out of those, we had, that were served, were about 460, okay? So almost half of them were served with reading recovery, right? Or some form of that within the K2, and the other half were not, all right?
Was that because we didn't have personnel?
No, it's because you focus on the lowest of the low.
Okay.
That's, that whole program's focused on the bottom 10%. And so, and then, again, in the Read 180, which is your 3 through 8 group, but again, focusing on the lowest of the lows, primarily in the elementary grades, again, similar numbers. Where, you had, without, the total group itself had about 2,400 students in it. About half of them were served with Read 180 interventions across the district. Again, the lowest of the low. These are all kids that are in the does not meet. Remember, some of the kids are rated the bubble that could move from does not meet to approaching. So the focus of the interventions and the recovery teachers is the lowest of the low. But again, when you look at the ones that had somebody touch them, in reading intervention, significant change versus the ones that didn't have somebody touch them.
So what do we need to do then to get more people touched,
Yeah.
more students
Good question.
touched?
So here's the interesting thing. First semester to second semester, there was a change, right? So we actually had more that were affected greater because those were the most neediest. So they worked them out of that, and then you grab the next group and you bring them up, and you grab the next group and you bring them. So basically you're working that lowest 10% until everything rises for you out of that. So that's what you do, is you keep working. So that bottom 10% is no longer the bottom 10%, right? That whole, it's changed because you've got these kids that have performed higher now. Now, they may still be in does not meet. That's the difference between our meets and exceeds number versus our does not meet number, right? So you got these kids, the lowest of the low, they may be just at the fringe of getting to approaches, but they may still be does not meet because they were that low, right? But the whole purpose of interventionists and reading recovery is to work with the lowest and push them up, and work with the next group and push them up, so everybody eventually moves up out of that category.
Right, but if we're, as a board, if we're looking for budgetary
Yep.
item,
Yep.
it would seem that would be, if we're getting that type of results,
We need to fund that.
we need to fund that.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree. And all
So
your-
I mean, that's
all
what
your
this whole
principals are
exercise
saying-
was to get
all
to.
your- all
That's
your
what the
principals-
whole exercise of asking these numbers was to get to.
They're all applauding that.
Right.
Because they know the impact that's having on their buildings.
So what do we do to fund that and get the people to do
So right,
just what we're asking?
so right now they're funded through ESSER monies.
But can we get more? I mean, because we got plenty of extra money.
So along with what she said, I was just looking here, we didn't comment on what had the Fed funds numbers, went back and looked at that. So we had purchase of technology, 12.5, we had, others, whatever, salaries and code stuff, 8 million. additional long-term, 2 additional FTEs per school, 26 million, and indirect costs. Basically, 50-something.6 million dollars. Well, if you take the 46 million or so, and you divide, or you get 1,000 new employees at $26,000 a piece. I don't know. I'm trying to say, what do we do to get that?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll pay somebody $25,000, $50,000. That puts 500 more to 1,000 more people, either additional or those that we've got more money.
Yeah. But Jamie, remember, the whole message was, don't hire people, because you
Not
can't
at
sustain
that
it.
level.
No, okay, don't hire. Then
Right.
pay what you got. I'm thinking, you give me 25 grand, I think I can do a little side work. You give me 50 grand. When you look at the numbers, I just don't know, but it seems like that have a greater one-on-one impact. It just seems like.
So what we need to figure out going forward, whether it be through our legislators and the federal piece, or remember some of the things we were talking about at the last meeting, how can we shift some monies around, right? To extend out what we're paying for. So is there some things that we can do, and Renee's looking at me like, oh, here he goes. Is there some things we can do to shift monies around to, again, give us longevity to those positions that are in place?
Do we have enough of them right now?
I would say no. I
So
would
what
say,
do we do now? Because we got.
because I've been, again, technically, it goes away in a year,
Right, I
a
would
couple
rather
months.
let it go away with us having used it than it just to go away.
But hiring people to take those jobs is difficult because it's a certified teacher. And they're saying, you're basically telling them, you got a year job, and then I can't promise you anything after that. You see, that's the difficulty. Everybody's,
Can't we tap into our retired teachers who maybe would come back for 1 year to I mean,
the jobs are posted. We've got vacancies with these positions out there still.
Look, this might seem petty, but picking up the phone, calling a list of the last 100 retirees in the last 3 years,
We do.
they have been.
and they have no interest in.
We do, many of them, we have several of them do work for us, but for the most part, they do not. You're right.
So we're turning over the stones, we are. But Wanda, to your point, I agree. If we find something that has this success and you get applause from the principal saying it has that success, we got to figure out long-term, how can we maintain that? Some of our schools, we have enough of those people in place. Some, they're still trying to hire. Again, some of them, they'll hire them, and because the people know it's a short-term, technically it's a short-term job, as soon as something else comes available to them, they'll leave it. They may be great at the role, but they're not permanent positions right now. So the key is, how do we identify, what are we going to call permanent, right? Is there a way we can extend the money? And if the feds don't do it for us, how can we do it internally? And then can we at least tell people, hey, it's a 5-year job. It's not a 1-year job, right? Because that's what they need to hear. Otherwise, they're not going to take the jobs, even if we offer 20 of them today.
So when you're looking for these people, these retired folks, what are we offering them? A full-time teaching job?
Yep.
Or
It's a full-time job.
so I'm just saying, if you hired 500, I can't find them. I'm just hypothetically saying, at $52,000, which is taking that money we just spent, $52,000. Boy, what impact would that? I mean, $52,000. I come in and teach X number of kids.
Now, Jamie, we haven't spent that money. That's the budget.
No.
That's a budget.
I was just looking at what the 1, 2, and 3 ESSER funds, and that's in all 3 of those major categories. I look at the 3 major categories, what has been spent.
It's budget.
And what,
Yeah.
No, it shows what has been spent and what is to be spent.
We haven't spent $50 million.
Okay, y'all keep talking then because I don't know how to count.
We spent $50 million in ESSER money. I don't think we've spent $50 million in
I'm
ESSER
sorry,
money yet.
budgeted
Thank
expenditures,
you.
year-to-date
Yes.
expenditures, 11, 22, yeah, about 28, 30,000, yes, okay.
All right.
Budgeted. But again,
So
hypothetically,
that's almost half the money left.
that I'm saying if you could find them, and boy, when I come back and teach X number of kids, if I had 5, 6, 10 of those kids, I don't know, I'm just, does that not help?
You gotta be careful. What are you paying your regular classroom teachers? Right? that really good classroom teacher who's benefiting from it, and then all of a sudden you say, well, we're gonna pay you a lot more because we can.
And just thinking out loud again, y'all probably try this too, but so offer that to an existing teacher to extend her class day, that the kids hold over for 2 hours, and I won't go.
Yeah.
You follow where I'm coming from?
Yeah, if you ask the teachers, would you rather have an interventionist or would you rather work longer day and get paid? They want the interventionist.
Okay. Cool, that's fine.
That-
We're asking, guys,
Yep.
we're with y'all. We're trying to find
Yep.
a solution to this.
Yep,
Well, they're already working long days anyway, most of them.
they are.
So the answer is, we can't find them, so it's not gonna work.
Everybody's looking for them too. That's the
Oh,
other part,
I-
Tim. You
I
know,
trust you,
every
the whole
school
country.
district is tapping in. And I will say, I mean, we jumped on it early, even though they said don't buy personnel with it. We jumped on it early because we knew we got 3 years at least. Other districts, they're just now at the point of trying to hire people. So not only can we not find teachers for the regular classroom, everybody's trying to hire all these extra
about
people.
earlier. I mean,
Yeah.
we're sitting here, we got 3 years to spend it, you
Yeah.
can't find anybody teaching a regular class, much
Yeah.
less come in and do, I
So,
understand that.
so we've got to get creative in budgeting. So that's what we're going to be looking at down the
We
road.
need our, which I think here the whole board here supports, looking at ways to extend these interventionists to, hey, it isn't just a 1 year anymore, it's gonna be minimum 5 years that we're looking at that will keep you here. You know, and
Let me bring some numbers back to you on
Okay.
what that cost is and what that would look like. But also, we're still talking with our peers about what are some other ways we can do this, right? Because I've said it over and over. If you give me 7 to 10 years, I'll take that budget and I'll make it work for the extra positions. But if you're telling me I don't have any choice and either I spend it or I lose it in another year, I mean, that's just times 100 what you're talking about, Jamie. That's what we're headed for if they don't give us the flexibility. And again, it's not the state level with this. This is the federal.
Oh, I know, the whole
It's the
country's
federal.
after the same people, I understand.
And so,
I'd rather be like Ms. Hassler says all the time, be proactive with this and get
Yep.
the word out to them that, hey, we're looking into this. You know, try and maybe give them a little ray of sunshine
Yep.
that, hey, you know, I can stay here a few more years longer.
well, and realize technically, really what we're talking about now, if you're constantly working with the bottom 10%, technically they could work themselves out of a job.
Yeah, but then they could always work with the next level up to get them past the point that they need to be.
But then they're in the regular classroom setting and they're not as difficult for the teachers to teach. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is that
But
when they're
I
super
don't have
low,
any, I don't have any problem with you if we've rolled everybody out of does not meet, we've got everybody in approach, we roll everybody out of approaches and we move them to meet, I don't have any problem, just keep rolling up. I mean,
Okay.
And we can
I'm
sit
just,
there and roll
it
up
seems to
to
me there's always going,
exceeds.
right.
but
Thank
just
you.
just remember the type that where that
Too short
student
anyway.
is, that they can be, they'll be more successful. Like those students will be more successful. That percent increase you see between the ones you're touching and not touching, that's going to change.
But
The
I
better
think
the
we
students
still
become.
have a number of years that we're
Yes.
gonna see that lower
We're not
level
there yet.
because of what
That's right.
learning we lost
Yep.
during this COVID mess.
We're not close to there yet.
Yeah,
I think
we
that's
got
the
a
big
good
point.
number of years that we can utilize these people.
All right, good stuff. Again, some of the accolades: Mayo High School for Math Science and Technology ranked number 4 this past year in the state of South Carolina in U.S. News and World Report. They were a national blue ribbon school. Lamar Spalding Elementary ranked number 1 in South Carolina with the new beta growth model. That's the new model that Mr. Ferguson's presenting. It's in beta form right now. Bay Road, Darlington Middle, Thornwell, and Rosenwald all showed significant growth on that model that Mr. Ferguson is out there demonstrating. But also you saw that in their growth that they had, moving kids out of does not meet and moving kids into the other categories. And then Spalding Middle, I'm kind of sharing some report card data that's embargoed, so I can't say a whole lot, but they're expected to obtain all the points for growth, which is significant for any school. Significant for any school. So those folks in the back know exactly what that means. So that's pretty significant for our district in general. 11 out of our 13 schools increased their ELA mean scores from the year before to last year. So 11 of our 13 schools increased their ELA mean scores. 7 increased their rankings, moving up, right? The district moved from 58th to 57th. Again, we had significant growth in the does not meet category. We just didn't have the same growth in the meets and exceeds category because we were focused intentionally on those kids that were so low. We were focused on all of them. We just didn't see the same gains. In math, 8 of 13 schools increased their mean math score, 6 increased in their rankings. The district moved from 51st to 47th overall. Again, moving up on the list. Got lost that flag there. The district improved the scores in Algebra 1, U.S. History, and Biology, and the end of course exams. We moved from 39th to 34th, again up because of the overall EOC scores for the 4 categories. Again, this is something that's embargoed, so it's not really able to be discussed, but I can tell you that the graduation will increase over what it was last year in a very positive way. So, and it was already high in comparison to the state average. All right, technology tools. Refreshed all teacher and school-based devices. So all the TAs got new iPads. All the kids got new iPads in grades 3 through 8. All the teachers got new iPads and MacBooks. All the offices got new boxes. All the data managers everybody got computers refreshed in the district. Some of them it had been 10 years since they had been refreshed. So new devices put out. We implemented a technology advisory committee last year to assist with feedback on some of the new technology systems and software. They helped us with the Promethean board rollout. So again, there was a district-wide committee that looked at boards, period, and decided that this was the board that they wanted to use, that they felt would best serve them and the district's needs. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Lewis, you got your boards completed this past weekend, so your teachers have their boards?
We did. We were very excited.
Good. And that professional development is ongoing as well, training teachers how to use the boards. We initiated the esports program. Again, I think it would be, hopefully we can either do a tour or have a board meeting over in that esports room so everybody will see how that's going to impact our kids in a really positive way. We installed new PA system at all of the stadiums, the football stadiums this past year. So we upgraded with installations that because some of them were in tatters. I remember graduation at Lamar was very difficult the year before last. I think we were talking about that at one time. Spring sports is also being updated. So softball and baseball, we're upgrading the systems to help our student athletes. We implemented 1-to-1 Plus, which is an inventory tracking system for all of our devices. We've not had a single system, one system in Darlington County that tracked every device that's out there. So whether it's a projector that's hanging, whether it's a board that's there, whether it's a student's MacBook, whether it's an iPad that a TA is using it, we actually have a tracking system now, and we can run reports based off of federal funding, what was paid out of ESSER funds, what was paid out of regular funds. All that can be tracked now and run for when we have to report to the state and to the federal government about that. We implemented online professional development now. So a lot of the new Promethean board trainings, the Performance Matters we were talking about, the SC Hub, which is the Discovery Education System that's been rolled out by the state. All of that, there's now videos that are accessible for our teachers and TAs to be able to do on their own time and to be able to do at their own pace. Again, it doesn't take the place of in-person, but it certainly speeds up the process for people who are the fast learners. We installed security measures for all devices. If Jamie stepped out, but we had this discussion. We did not have virus protection on all of our devices, all of our servers, all of our laptops, all of our boxes that we had in different areas. So we were able to get that put in. The question came up about ransomware and those types. Do we have that insurance? You know, again, all of that plays into a lower rate because we have the security systems in place now. Integrated hardware and software implementations in all of the departments. You heard us talking about Cronus. Transportation got new GPS tracking software that was implemented. Curriculum with Performance Matters, and communications, of course, with the websites, and what we're looking at for what that looks like going forward as well. So we reorganized department tasks and assignments for increased efficiencies and coverage. Again, we're just trying to put people in places that can help the schools as much as possible. Weather the storms. Again, it seems like a long time ago, but we went through 2 significant COVID surges last year. One when we started school and one in January. I went back and pulled one of my old board reports. In January 21st, we had 27% of our students out of school that week. Remember where I was reporting each week, here are the numbers that tested positive, here's the amount of employees. Almost 30% of our kids were out, and that was when they were out for 10 days, right? Because we were still doing contact tracing. We had several of our buildings. I remember the principals were calling and saying, if I have one more person that goes out, we're not going to be able to keep the building open. But we never closed a school. So, and I remember having a conversation with Representative Jay Lucas when he said, you all have done extremely well on keeping your buildings open in comparison to a lot of other school districts. I know it hadn't been easy. I know it's been difficult, but he actually recognized the fact that our district did really well and made sure that a lot of his peers knew that. But it wasn't easy. And then, of course, we had we had testing sites. Everybody could drive through and get tested. And then if you were positive, then you had somebody picking up the phone and they were calling and saying, who were you around? And when's the last time you were around them? That was last fall, right? Not spring, but in fall, we were having to do all the contact tracing. So, I mean, the disruption that took place to our school year, and yet, here we stand with a lot of things that we accomplished. Orange Frog Initiative, we trained 500 plus employees last year between administrators and school staff. We implemented a new Red Apple Pass where it's a photo ID now, so that stays with people instead of the paper ones that were getting passed in and out of the gates. E-directory, it doesn't seem like this was forever, but it was just last year where we put an e-directory online for our employees instead of the paper. We don't. How many did we print this past year, Audrey? I mean, for this year, a handful of paper where we were printing 10,000 of those things to put out to everybody at one time. We don't print anymore. It's online. The board approved the 2-year calendars that we've got, and it built in the 2 years of breaks. One of them that we just came off of, and that I think a lot of our employees and a lot of our parents were really excited about.
I'm just going to tell you, I haven't run into a parent who did not give me positive feedback on this new.
And I hope they thanked you for it.
Extended,
Yep.
the modified year round.
So parents.
I've got nothing but positive.
Good.
Teachers also.
Yeah.
Positive.
Good. Well, let's hope that it gave everybody some extra energy to get this push through until Christmas and the end of the semester. But I think it's been received very positive. We introduced the bi-monthly In the Know videos that you all get a copy of in your board email. But it's again, after every board meeting, trying to update all of our employees, anything that transpired at the board meeting, what's new and what's going on. We got 2 new district initiatives for alternative certification that are going on for teacher recruitment. The Teach for Tomorrow and Carolina CAP. We got a lot of people in these programs in our buildings right now that we would have had substitutes in at this point in time if we didn't have that in place. New assistant principals leadership program that we've started, again, kicking up meetings with those folks to keep them in the loop. We just initiated a national board certification cohort that was in the works at the end of last year. We've got actually 60 participants that we could actually have 60 new national board certified teachers in our school district, which would be huge. Our International Teacher Council, you remember I mentioned at the last meeting about the luncheon that they had. they started putting that together last year. There's over 100 international teachers participating in that. And then our retention rate was 92% for last year. So, and we always talk about, you may have heard other districts say they have 100%. Well, you really don't ever want 100% because that means every single person is perfect in their job. And the reality is, if they're not perfect, you need to be taking them out of that job. So the retention rate at being at 92%, that means 8%, they may not have needed to stay with us, right? And it's okay that they may not be there. So you're striving for 100% the best of the best, but really if you're saying you're 100%, you're keeping some people you probably need to help move along too.
So does that 8% include just normal retirements?
Sure, everything. So retirees, people that are a good teacher that get a job somewhere else, but also some teachers that we felt like it was best for them to move on. They may have been first-year teachers that needed to move on, or letter of agreement teachers that we have.
So what's the state average on that? I mean, I think 92 is probably really good.
92 is good. I'm going to say it's somewhere in that 11% statewide if you factor in all the school districts, which means some of them are less, some of them are more. But technically you start qualifying for funds when you get above that 11%.
How's our retention rate for our international teachers been?
Probably better than,
That's better than most.
Right.
Because they are living here in America with the understanding that they stay employed with us.
Okay.
So with them, you're pretty close to 100.
Yeah.
it's not just the desire to live in Darlington County, it's the desire to live in America,
Oh,
plus
yeah.
Darlington County,
Oh.
so they stay.
I know we had one that was leaving us due to the visa expiring.
Yeah.
How easy is it for us to keep assisting them with their visas?
Are these J1 visas?
Some of them are J1, some of them are H1B.
Okay.
We've had some challenges. The preference is if we have really good teachers, we want to hire them and we want to keep them for as long as they'll stay with us. J1 is limited on how long they can stay. So how do we get them to H1B without having conflict with the people who provide J1 is the best way I can put it. So there's been some challenges there. But from my perspective, they're some of your most loyal people, and if they can get sponsored and on an H1B and stay, they'll stay forever. So we expanded the district live streaming events. Remember when we started live streaming graduations? Now we're live streaming school events as well too now. Again, technology helping us with that. We are live streaming board meetings now. We started doing that last year. We didn't do that before then. And so it's a great time and opportunity for people out in Cyberland to see how we make decisions and what we do and the discussions that we have. For the fourth straight year, this is financially, for the fourth straight year, we finished with more revenues than budgeted. And our revenues exceeded expenditures, so that's the fourth straight year that's taken place. And we've also exceeded the recommended 3-month of fund balance that's recommended for school districts to have. We've exceeded that again. And we've added to our capital improvement plan fund for all of our future projects that we have that are lined up. So we are in a strong position financially in the school district. We've also made a lot of hires at the end of last year that impacted this year. So we hired a new director of maintenance. We hired a new lead social worker. We hired a new workforce engagement coordinator, a new evaluation coordinator, a new principal for DCES, Ms. Cooper. Thank you for being here tonight with us. So she's officially, this is her first board meeting, seeing everybody. And then we hired a new principal for Mayo High School, and we hired a new special education compliance officer. So the one constant is change. And so, how we respond to that change and how are we replacing positions as people retire, as Lisa Fagan did. Thankfully, Lisa Fagan's working part-time with us still and helping, but you know, you got to turn around and hire somebody new, and you got to hire a new director of maintenance. You remember Mr. McElveen retired last year.
Just for clarification, how many of these were new positions?
Brand new positions?
New positions? 'Cause,
Just-
I mean, I
just-
just think that needs to, because it
Yes.
looks like they're all,
Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay.
Just the last one.
okay, I just
The
wanted to.
very last one, and we had been trying to hire that position for the past 2 years, and finally got them hired at the end of last year to start this school year. So that was in the budget that had been approved by the board 2 years prior, just because of COVID circumstances.
I just wanted clarification on that, because
Thank
it
you.
could.
They are not brand new. There's
Correct.
only one brand new position there. And also on the workforce engagement coordinator, I was trying to fit everything in this presentation I could. The Key to Career program, we had 55 interns with us last spring semester, which was the most that we had had since we started the program, despite COVID. There were 55. This fall, we have the largest class of interns. There's 44 in the current internship program for this fall, largest that we've had so far. So again, those numbers are increasing. COVID absolutely impacted that program because kids couldn't go and employers couldn't have them come in. But we're past that. And again, having great conversations with our workforce community about how to improve the numbers. I've always said, if we can get 200 kids a year coming through that program that are doing internships with our manufacturers, with our local businesses, and obtaining jobs after graduation, that's a huge thing. All right, coming down the home stretch, I only have a couple more slides here. Goals that we had, these were goals that we set for last school year for the year. And at my convocation last year, when Devin was with us, Devin stood up and was our guest speaker at the beginning of last school year, where we thought we were going to have everybody in the arena, but we could only have 400 of us because COVID. But anyways, that we put out 3 goals. The first was to increase literacy in all grades. And again, what we did, our mean ELA scores increased from 496.4 to 511.57. You heard about the ELA increases that we had with the schools. Our rate of growth that we increased, that difference between 496.40 and 511.57 was 3% versus the state's increase of 2%. So we did increase in comparison to the state as far as our growth. Again, we got where was a lot of the increase? Well, our second goal was to recover unfinished learning loss and delays from COVID. Well, if you remember, we set a goal for does not meet, and we achieved that goal. We improved, again, the year before, 45% of our kids that took SC Ready were does not meet. 45%. And we improved that to 35% this past year. So only 35% compared to 45% the prior year. So we met that. We improved math. We didn't meet math. I had hoped to have the 10% math increase of does not meet. We all know, everybody in the back there as well as up here knows that math, read all the articles with the state, math is behind ELA. But we did increase from 45% of our students not meeting to 39% of our students not meeting. So we did recover loss. I mean, our majority of recovery was in that does not meet category. The third goal that we had last year was social emotional awareness and reinforcement. Again, we set up the SEL committees and we set up the screeners that we implemented. All right. Superintendent. I was chosen as a finalist for South Carolina Superintendent of the Year by my peers in SCASA. Those are folks that understand how difficult this job is and what it takes to do it. So I was very appreciative, but as I've always said, that's an indication of the people out in this room here. That's not about me, that's the work that these folks do, and that our teachers do, and that our principals do, our administrators, all of our employees do. That's just a reflection, that's a reflection for me because of what everybody else does. I was named vice chair of the PD Superintendent's Consortium at the end of last year to serve for the next 3 years. Served as a panelist for Clemson University's Diversity and Inclusion Summit. We were designated as a District of Distinction by the International Center of Leadership in Education. That was at the very beginning of last school year. We were one of 7 districts nationally, and of course myself, Ms. King, several of our principals presented at the national conference about a lot of the things that we're doing to try to help our students. So I would say overall, there's a lot of really good going on in the Darlington County School District. There's a lot to be proud of. There's a lot for everybody in this room to be able and say, I'm proud of where I am, and I'm proud of what I do, and I'm encouraged about what we're doing as a district. One of the hardest things to do is to get a very large organization moving in a direction at the same time. Our schools know how difficult this is just at the school level. How do you get all your teachers moving forward at the same time? But more importantly, as a district, how do you get all your schools and administrators moving in the same direction? How do you get the district level moving in the same direction? It is a slow-moving boat. Doesn't mean it can't be done. Doesn't mean we don't have pockets of success that are happening very quickly. But at the end of the day, moving an organization takes a lot of time and effort, but effort more than anything. And I'm thankful for the principals that are here with us tonight, as well as the ones that aren't. I know Christy Austin is watching online. She wanted to be here. She asked if she could come. I said, no, you got to stay home. But she's online, as well as a lot of the other principals. And I appreciate all the effort that you put in, but most importantly, what you do for our students and what you do for our community. So again, do we have room to grow? Yes. Do we have challenges? Yes, we do. But I would say that anybody that works in this district right now, if you ask them how do they feel about where they are compared to some of their peers in other districts, we're in a pretty good place, and we're only going to improve that. And so I think we'll see the results from that in our retention rates, in our test scores, in our finances, in our capital programs. We're only going to see that grow, but we're at a good place. So that's what I have for the state of the district.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. We have a lot to be proud of here in Darlington County. There's no doubt about it. Most time we hear a lot of negative. But if you look at the overall picture where we are, we're not where we want to be by any means. But at least we are moving in that direction. And thanks to all our principals that are here tonight. Who could not be here. Just also recovering, but wish her well. Wish everyone well. But folks, all I can say is thank you to everyone. I'm talking about teachers, custodians, bus drivers, cafeteria workers. It takes a team to do this. I mean, it takes everyone working together. No one's really any more important than the other. If one piece drops down and they don't do what they're supposed to do, it causes problems for someone else. So as long as we're all working together, supporting our superintendent, supporting our principals, our teachers. You can't say enough about our teachers. I mean, I hear it all the time. I mean, they're asked to do paperwork upon paperwork. And they're asked to stay late in the afternoon a lot of times. We talk about asking them to work more. I mean, it's kind of hard to ask them to work more than they are. And I promise you I hear it because I got a daughter teaching. I know, y'all know I know. She's not, and she'll tell me too, I promise you. But thanks again to everyone. Newman, appreciate you, what you do. You got our support. We'll do anything we can to help you. We got a long way to go, but at least we're on the right track. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on. Well, superintendent's update, I think you just gave it.
I think I'm going to spare you that tonight.
All right.
I'll spare you that.
All right. Good deal. We'll move on to board member input. Ms. Kelly, we'll start with you. Good? Luke?
I'm just gonna reiterate some, thank all of our principals, our teachers, all of our staff. Like Mr. Jeffers was saying, we can't operate without every one of our employees. All the way down to our custodians, our maintenance workers. If our maintenance workers aren't available, our schools aren't gonna operate. We don't have cafeteria workers, our children's not gonna get fed. We don't have bus drivers. I volunteer to drive a bus, but I can't, due to legislation. But I mean, you see where I'm going with it. It takes, it takes a family to run this place. And I know y'all sat here and y'all heard us sit here and discuss how we'd love to get more and more interventions in. But funds, they're tied up on a federal level where we just possibly can't do it right now, but we are listening to you. We're doing everything we can. That's it.
Okay. Jamie?
I do not have COVID and I do not have the flu. I've had this for 10 days, I can't shake it, but anyway, it's not that. I think I've said enough other than, again, it is great to see collectively, overall, we beat it to death every meeting, all week, the negatives, only to try to improve, but when you hear the global picture, it is a little more relieving about, yes, it is progress, and that's what it's all about, is progress. Is it frustrating? Yeah, no more frustrating than I'm sure that all of them. But again, I'd say I'd love to drop all the little things we talk about, just do nothing but advocate and go to the federal level legislature to make the change. That is the only place you're going to make the change. We can make some small things here that help, but overall it's just frustrating to see there are solutions to our problems. But when your hands are tied, it is extremely frustrating. For 22 years I've told you I've done this, and I hate to say I feel like I've done nothing. Maybe we should have changed the whole focus years ago, but it would be to give flexibility in spending, flexibility in the way we educate the curriculum. I think curriculum is driven down. We aren't the same as Greenville, we aren't the same as somewhere out in Colorado or Idaho. It is different environments. I don't think we serve our workforce well, not our teachers. I'm talking about how we're allowed to teach. It's a frustrating thing. The whole country's going through the same thing. When I talk to the state folks, they're just as frustrated as we are. I was thinking, well, maybe they aren't in touch, so they're in touch. There's just nothing you can do. So that is frustrating, but again, legislator, I'd love to see our focus for the next few years as many meetings as we can have with them.
Yep. Charles?
Only two things. One is, I'm glad that we are back to some normalcy and having our principals and administrators be able to come, because I think it's important that they see our views and see how we feel, and as well to have dialogue with them as to where they want to see us go. The second thing is, some of you may know, some of you may not know that I had definitely our family. And I want to thank those who have reached out to my daughter, DeWanda, and those who kept and asked if you all keep us in your prayers.
Richard?
I'd like to just say welcome back to all the staff and teachers and the kids and everything. I hope you had a great time off this past week. And I just want to thank you for all that you do for us out there. And we're seeing this organization start to make that turn towards the light at the end of the tunnel that used to be referred to. And we're getting there. I know sometimes it seems like our progress is as slow as a snail, but I'd rather be slow and steady than fast and then taking one step forward and 3 steps back. I just want to thank you for all that you do for us. We can never thank you enough. And if there's anything that you want to talk to us about, follow the chain of command, and please just let us know. There's no idea that can't be looked at that can make things better.
Good. Got a couple things. I gave everyone a folder, superintendent's evaluation. You can do these and get them back to Wanda, myself, and the next, by the work session, which is the 24th, which is actually the delegation, right?
Yep, the dinner.
But you can bring it then, or get it back to me one before then, greatly appreciated. We'll do a collation of everything, pile it together, and we'll get back with the board on the evaluation. And delegate assembly is the first weekend in December.
Here's your next pitch.
So, Charles, I know you're going.
Yeah.
Luke, are you going?
I'll go.
You okay? Anyone else? This is the first year I had to ever go, but, I'm sure when I'm going. Okay, so, okay, Charles and Luke. Okay.
And then they get the votes.
They get all
Y'all
our
get the-
votes.
You get the votes for the,
I think it's four, I believe.
okay.
3 to 4.
So we need just, us.
Yeah, so
fill
give that
that
to
out.
Tina,
Okay.
and I think she's already has the rooms reserved, so we'll go from there.
Okay.
Let's see. And you're gonna talk to Matthew Person about meeting with the board, at work session,
At a
right?
work session,
Get
yep.
that done. Okay. Now, I got a call today, which was kind of interesting, from a former coach and teacher called, and y'all may have heard of this, I hadn't heard of it, One Chip Challenge. It's something they're selling at convenience stores and so forth, and it's some type of chip laced with some type of, you may know more about it than I do.
The One Chip Challenge is a nacho chip
Yeah,
that is laced with extremely hot pepper.
The Carolina Reapers.
It's actually the one above the Reaper, and so it's enough that they literally sell one chip at a time, and students have been, I don't know that it's happened in our district, but students across the country have been taking this One Chip Challenge, trying to eat it,
but they're getting sick,
and
making
getting
really very sick.
very sick.
So it's something to look out for, and I think they cost like, somebody told me $20. I don't know how true that is. I mean, if somebody taking advantage of the students is what it is. So, Principal, y'all need to be on the lookout for that. Okay. Vacancies, how are we?
21.
21?
Six elementary, 6 middle, and 9 secondary. It's ever changing. When I actually printed my notes, it was 22 prepping for this meeting, and we hired a new career changer into the high school, so it's down to 21.
I see some people are leaving during the year. We let them leave without having a replacement,
No, sir.
or we,
No, sir.
okay.
They signed that contract, they're bound to it until we can find a suitable replacement if they choose to leave us.
Okay, very good. All right, again, I want to say thank you to all our principals and everyone. Thank y'all for being here, we appreciate it. I know y'all have busy schedules and long days, but thanks, we appreciate it a lot. Okay, moving on to personnel actions.
Chairman, I move to accept personnel recommendation and that has been done belong.
Okay,
I'll second.
second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, executive session. I'll entertain a motion for that. Someone? Richard?
I move that we go into executive session, Board of Education, for personnel matters, recommendations for termination, hires, and/or transfers, and contractual matters.
Second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to go into executive session? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Barbara, you've been dealing with this how many years now?
All right, so we're back in open session. Luke made the motion to come out, second by Leanne. All right, so I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Barbara, you good? All right, motion to move, motion to adjourn.
I second.